Godzilla vs. Gigan is very difficult for me to place on my scale because just rating a movie on a scale of 1 to 10, especially when it comes to Godzilla movies, isn't so easy when there's so little of the movie that you actually like, but the parts that you like kind of a lot. I had this issue with Destroy All Monsters because I could not bring myself to pay attention to like 90% of the movie, and then the very end was really cool and I liked it a lot. So it's kind of it's kind of uneven ground with these movies. Like on a case by case basis, I can't just rate them as easily as I could any other movie because when you get into Godzilla, especially in the way that I'm getting into it, you just kind of get used to seeing the same trends and tropes over and over and over again, and it gets to the point where they just sort of become white noise. Like when I watched King Kong versus Godzilla, that movie is actually comparatively better than like 8 of the other Godzilla movies I've watched by now. And I think that going into it as the third Godzilla movie, it was a lot more difficult for me to enjoy that one. Whereas now that I have the context of all these other Godzilla movies, I think those are just comparatively worse, but I don't feel worse about them because I've just gotten into the routine of, you sit through the part of the movie where it's boring and then you get to the good part and then suddenly you wake up and you enjoy the hell out of it. So it's gotten to the point where I can't really tell the difference between a good Godzilla movie and a bad Godzilla movie by a Godzilla fan's standards, because I don't have all the context in my head yet. I'm just uncovering these as I go. I don't know anything about the movie until I see it. So in the case of Godzilla vs. Gigan, I think it's just another Godzilla movie. It's like these movies in the first, I want to say the first 15 movies, the Showa series, as it's called. I still don't know what that means. But this line of continuity in the Godzilla series is it's just kind of samey, there's some boring humans. Sometimes they're more boring than normal, sometimes they're not. They get involved with another corny-ass space alien who tries to take control of the monsters, and then Godzilla saves the day at the end by beating up the evil monster, and there's elongated sequences of a big monster breaking buildings and stuff while military weapons shoot at them for a while. Those things happen in almost every single one of those movies, these movies, except for the first one. The first one was the only Godzilla movie I've seen so far that felt like art. It felt like it was trying to have a theme and a point and a message. And then immediately the second Godzilla movie was just about Godzilla fighting another monster. And then that's what the third one was about, and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth. So I get the sense that this just is what this first line of movies is going to be, and maybe there'll be some more variety thrown in the later movies. I don't know yet. I certainly hope so, because if I'm in for 20-something more movies of this shit, it's gonna get pretty exhausting, and I'm probably not gonna be a long-term Godzilla fan. I could easily see the new movie being the climax of all of this, and then I could just move on and not care anymore. Maybe I'll revisit the 1 or 2 movies that I really liked, like Mothra vs. Godzilla is up there. Maybe I'll watch King Kong vs. Godzilla again and like it more this time. But as of right now, I'm just kind of getting into I feel like I've hit the bell curve of the lower quality Godzilla movies, the part that people generally don't like that much, because Son of Godzilla was one thing. All Monsters Attack, which apparently is also known as Godzilla's Revenge. I didn't know that at the time. But Godzilla's Revenge is just... These movies are kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel. Each one has gotten cheaper than the last. It feels like they reuse stock footage from past movies more and more. And, they can't just introduce a new monster and make the new monster interesting like they tried to do with Hedorah, which only kind of worked. They feel the need to throw in another monster from a past movie. In Godzilla vs. Gigan, they bring back Anguirus, or Anguirus, whatever it's called, the fucking dinosaur from the second movie. He's in this one. He teams up with Godzilla to fight against Gigan, and Gigan's not alone. Ghidorah is there too, and they reuse some of the attacks that they used in Destroy All Monsters. Although it looks like they reshot them, which is nice, so at least they're not just blatantly using the footage again, like in All Monsters Attack, where it was just like a montage of fights from the past couple of movies. That was infuriating, but this time around it's a lot more tolerable, I would say. It's not really that noticeable. Like, I didn't really notice it until I saw James Rolfe's video about it, where he pointed out all the similarities to past movies, and oh yeah, like they pretty much did just reuse a lot of stuff. But I don't know, I enjoyed this one alright. Like, it wasn't, like, yeah, it's just another, like, drop in the bucket of Godzilla, just, you know, it's just another whatever movie. But, on the other hand, Gigan itself is pretty fucking cool. I really like the design of Gigan. He's like a kind of cyborg dinosaur from outer space, which Ghidorah is the only other villain, like other kaiju from outer space that's been introduced so far, so to have a second one is nice. And to have it be such a weird kind of like... The thing has a buzzsaw in its chest, and it can grab monsters, pull them into its body, and just go, nee, just cut them up. Something fascinating about this movie is that this is the first movie since the second one to have visible blood coming out of the monsters. There's a part where Gigan flies up towards Godzilla and slices his shoulder with the buzzsaw thing, and blood just splurts out of his shoulder, and it's like, whoa, like that's badass. Godzilla gets the shit beat out of him because Gigan also has scythes for hands, so he just like stabs into Godzilla's skull a few times, and you see Godzilla like bleeding from the middle of his head, and his eyes are kind of swollen and shut, and that's pretty neat. I don't know, Ghidorah, there's some pretty satisfying moments of Godzilla picking up Ghidorah by his tail and slamming him into the ground. He does that a few times, and that's badass. He does like a sweet combo where he holds Ghidorah like in like a Nelson sort of deal, and then Anguillus just jumps backward into him, because Anguillus has a bunch of spikes on his back, so he just jumps backward and all the spikes stab Ghidorah in the belly, and they do that like 3 times. But yeah, you know, it's just one of those things where Godzilla gets the shit beat out of him for a while, but then he suddenly gets a second wind, he gets back up, and he beats the ever-loving tar out of the 2 evil monsters, and then eventually they get tired and fly away because they suck. I can't remember what the plot was, per se, of this movie. I know it started out with a guy who was like a manga artist, like a frustrated manga artist, and then he like found out... Oh yeah, that's right. The goofy space alien race that's introduced in this movie, this time it's cockroaches. They're literal giant cockroaches disguised as humans, and at the end of the movie, when their base is being destroyed and crumbling around them, they're like under the rubble, and they just turn back into giant cockroaches, and they're still talking like humans, and it's really funny. Yeah, I don't know. The actual plot is really, really irrelevant to the point of this movie. It really is just about Godzilla fighting Gigan. That's all there is to it. Everything else is just filler material. There was like something, like they were setting up for there to be a big fight in like a theme park. Like a dinosaur, Godzilla themed theme park. And it doesn't really look like they're fighting in a theme park, it just looks like a generic desert. And there's like a couple shots where, say, Godzilla's tail knocks over a Ferris wheel, and that's about it. Really doesn't give off the vibe of a theme park. I think they were probably just planning ahead for this. Like, oh, if it just takes place in a dusty-ass desert, we can just film the next movie with a fight scene in a dusty-ass desert, and we can reuse footage from this movie in the next one, because we're assholes. So, you know, that's the vibe I get. That's the vibe I get from this movie. It feels very phoned in. But, damn, Gigan is cool. He's probably going to come back in another movie. Like, another movie. He's going to come back in, like, 5 movies. I know of at least, like, what's it called? There's, like, that 150th anniversary movie with, like, all the Godzillas in it or whatever. I don't remember what it's called, but I know Gigan's in that one at least. But, you know, I only got to sit through, like, 50 more movies before I get to that one? It's fine, you know, whatever. The next movie on my list is, what's it called again? It's Godzilla vs. Megalon. Now this one I've actually heard about before. I've heard of this one being notoriously like one of the worst Godzilla movies. But yeah, I don't know how it can get much worse than, say, All Monsters Attack. Like, I don't know if I'm ready to believe that yet, but I guess we'll find out in the foreseeable future. So stick around for that, I guess. Yeah. Peace.